All right, so we're going to start with the perfect first. Once again, the perfect first, of course, is the same. We're looking at octaves or just basically the same note. I'm not going to get too much into basically the octaves, but the idea here is going to be that if we take each of the strings, let's go from 1 to 12, 1 to 12 in terms of the frets, and wrapped it around in a circle, we would have all 12 notes in a circle. And if we go around the circle all 12 steps, we would go one lap around the circle. Therefore, there's no real inverse distance to the octave, because if I go counterclockwise or clockwise around the circle, I will then end up at the same point I started with. So that's going to be the idea here. So we're going to go 12 steps, so I don't have to look for the inverse distance. In other words, normally when I go above the string, I have to look for the inverse distance, but this is kind of the exception because there is no inverse distance if you're looking at 12. By the way, the other exception is if you go exactly halfway around the circle, which is a sixth note away, which you might call like a flat fifth or an augmented fourth. Also, you're in that weird situation where you can go either way and there is no real inverse. So we have those two situations here. So also just realize that right above here is right when we cross the fault line. So we have the fault line right at our head, at the top of our head. There's the fault line. So that means that we have to take into account that difference because this whole tectonic plate shifted to the right a long time ago, like back in creation. It was back in like the creation of the guitar. Somehow this whole tectonic plate shifted to the right. And so now we just have to deal with it, man. That's what happens. Nature, dude, nature. All right, so if we go up one string, we're going to be out here. So we're looking for a 12 note away. So if I go up one string, now remember, normally we've been going down, and whenever we go down, if I went down, I'd have to go, instead of 5 note distance between these two, I had to go this way to get to the 5 note distance. Right now I'm going up across the fault line, which I'm not used to doing as much, right? So when normally the 5 note distance would be right above it, but because of the difference in the tuning, the 5 note distance is this way. So I'm going to call this -5 going out to that B, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, and then 0 or 12 back to the octave, or in this case, the same note. So if I was here, then we're going to practice going up over the fault line, which again, it's just like the alphabet where you're thinking, oh, I can count it forward and backwards just the same. Only a stupid person can't count the alphabet backward. No, most people can't count the alphabet backwards. You're not stupid if you can't do that. So it's gonna be 5. So we have to do the opposite, right? I know how to go across the fault line when I go this way, but what about if I go up across? Well, then I have to go back here. It's gonna be 5. And then 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, or octave. So we're going to be out here, fret 9. So same. All right, so that means that if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the octave is going to be 4 frets forward. But that's the only time I would cross the fault line. If I was down here, it would be here. I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on this continent. And if I was on this continent, up top, I wouldn't cross the fault line. So the rule is usually if I go up one string, then the octave is going to be 5 frets forward. It's only when I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the octave is only 4 frets forward. All right, let's go up 2 strings and cross the fault line. So we go up 2 strings and cross the fault line. The octave is going to be over here. Let's count it out. So again, normally if I went this way, I'd have to go this way to go a distance of 5. That means if I start down here, I've got to go back. I'm going to call that -5 distance, and then up. Now we're normal. The fault line is no longer here. So -5, -10, and then this way it's going to go more -11 and 12. So let's count it out from here. So I'm going to say it's going to be this E. So I'm going to say -5, -10, and then 11 and 12. So boom, boom. So, wait, is that right? Yeah. So there we have that one, and that means that if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, then the octave is going to be 1, 2, 3 frets back. But normally I wouldn't cross the fault line, or I would not cross the fault line if I started from the G or the D string, right? Because then I could still go up 2 strings and not cross the fault line. So if I was on like this E and I went up 2 strings, I would be back here. So the rule, and this is the shape that you probably recognize clearly if you were starting from this E and then trying to find the octave 2 strings down. That's often the most common octave. Less common to start on the bottom E and then visualize it this way. Same kind of thing of reversing the vision, like counting backwards, saying the alphabet backwards. And then we added another wrinkle into that problem in that now this is crossing the fault line. So once again, if I was going from this E down, I'm possibly getting better at being able to compensate for the fault line, noting that instead of reaching to this one, now I'd have to reach up here for the octave, but I'm most likely not as good at imagining myself down here and measuring back up, going across the fault line this way, even though it's the same shape, right? So that means that if I go down 2 strings, the octave is going to be 2 frets forward. And I'm sorry, if I go up 2 strings, the octave is going to be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the octave is going to be 3 frets back. All right, let's go up another string and across the fault line. So we're going 3 strings up and across the fault line. So I'm looking for a 12-note distance. So I'm going to say this is going to be, once again, -5 diagonal this way, and then 10 straight above, 10 straight up, 15 straight above, only 12 notes in the musical alphabet. So we're going to say 15 minus 12 is -3, -2, 1, 0. So I can count that this way. I can say, all right, this is going to be -5, -10, wait a sec. If I'm on this one, -5, -10, -15, and then 15 minus 12 is -3, and then -3, 2, 1, 0. So it's going to be boom, boom. Okay, so that means that if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the octave is going to be 2 frets forward. I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was starting on the G string, because I could still go up 3 strings. That's the only one where I could still go up 3 strings and not cross the fault line. So let's say I was here, for example, and I went up 3 strings. So I'm going to go it would be up to here. So now we're going to say, okay, if I go up 3 strings, then the octave would be 1, 2, 3 frets forward, unless I cross the fault line, which actually would happen more often than not, because it would happen on the bottom 2 strings. The only time I could go up 3 strings and not cross the fault line would be on the G, unless I consider going around the top of the guitar, which we're not really getting into at this point. So we're going to say, so if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, then the octave is going to be 1 fret forward in that case. All right, let's go up to the top one. Now notice when I go up to the top one here, we could say it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, possibly right here. Now it might be easier now that we're on the bottom of the guitar to recognize that these 2 strings are the same in terms of pitch or you know the tone. So I could try to count down first and then apply that up top. So if I go down, there's no change in the fault, and there's no fault line between these 2. So I could just say 5 and then 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And if this is the octave, it's going to be the same on the top string because they're the same notes. So again, that's kind of a trick that we're probably more used to doing at the top of the guitar, finding the note on this string and then seeing that it's the same at the bottom. At least I am. So, but we can apply that same technique, of course, on the bottom of the guitar because I'm closer to this bottom string. If I did count it up this way, though, it would be -5, -10, 15. I can bring that 15 down by 15 minus 12 is 3. 3 plus another 5 is 8. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's kind of a long reach. I'm losing my voice out there. So you possibly, but the idea would be if I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 strings and cross the fault line, which I don't need to say, because if I go up 4 strings, I'm always going to cross the fault line unless I consider going around the top of the guitar, right? So if I go up 4 strings, I can say that I'm always going to cross the fault line. Therefore, I don't have to say that once I start to internalize that in my mind. Well, I went up 4 strings, which means I, of course, did cross the fault line. And that means that it's always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back to get to the octave. All right, let's go down. If I go below it, now we're not crossing the fault line. We're just staying on the tectonic plate that is on the bottom, the small plate. So we can just say, all right, that's just going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, as we saw before. So we're just going to say this is going to be -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Here to the open. Same even note, or same octave even. So that's going to be that one. And so that means if I go down 1 string, the octave is going to be 5 frets back. Unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string. So if I was on the G string, then we could see that what happened, this note got pushed forward. So if I'm measuring from here, where I'm measuring to got pushed forward, making the distance less. So the rule would be, if I go down 1 string, the octave is going to be 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case, if I went down 1 string and crossed the fault line, the octave would only be 4 frets back. All right, so that's going to be that one. And then we'll go to the second